Hey guys, how's it going? It's Talomic here, back with D&B Academy, and today I want to take a look at leveling up presets. We're going to be using Serum 2. Not all the features that I'll be using are exclusive to Serum 2, but to be honest, if you're not on Serum 2 yet and you're using Serum 1, I can't think of many reasons why you wouldn't have moved over at this point. So it's worth trying, definitely. But as I said, not everything is exclusive here. So we've got this preset here that I made a few years ago for D&B Academy. Kind of basic, like screechy, hard drum and bass kind of dance floor sound, I guess. Maybe a little bit jump-hippy. Yeah, so I'll quickly run you through the sound. So we've got a sub. We've got this like screechy sound, and we've got some noise. If we layer those together, that's where the magic happens. The low sign is run through this heavy distortion. It kind of quenches everything together. We've got one LFO on the filter and the sync. And as I said, we've got a bit of distortion, or a lot of distortion, and a bit of compression at the end of the chain. So, first things first, if I was looking into this, let's look at layering. So we'll listen to it in isolation first. We'll create this saw wave, drop it to the right octave. I mean, that sounds kind of cool on its own. With the noise. Anyway, we'll come on to noise a bit later. I'm going to add some Unison, because in Serum 2 we can actually control the Unison directly here. There's a bunch of options that we can play with. So if I go into stack, for example, we've got a bunch of different things here. You can hear that we've got some higher layers stacked on there. We've also got some bits there too, which will take some lower octaves, or adding a fifth. I'm just going to switch this to mono. So let's maybe raise this an octave. That's kind of cool. Let's see how that sounds with everything else. Cool, but it feels a little bit clean. So one of the other options we've also got here is that we can distort the waveform directly. So if I go into distortion, and maybe select something, I'll explain why we'd want to do that. So if we take a sound that we've already got and run it through some filters and some envelopes and everything else, and then distort it, a lot of the transient information gets kind of squashed out by any distortion that we add. So if we've got some plucky envelopes and things like that, and then we try adding some distortion later on, they often get kind of squashed out. I'll do a video kind of more directly on this anyway, but if we're distorting the source of the sound, anything that we add to the sound after the fact isn't going to be squashed out by the distortion, because the distortion has already happened, right? So it's quite handy, I find, for like ARPs or like really tight bass sounds, to get a little bit of crunch out without ruining anything. And obviously there are ways around it, but as in ways around distorting it to remove transients, you can kind of bring things back and distort in clever ways, but so that's without, and that's with. Hopefully that translates. If I turn that up a little bit more, you can hear that quite well. Quite a lot of thickness that we've added with that layer, which is nice. Let's move over to noise. I'll turn the noise off. Cool thing about running noise and basses, if I just have the noise in the sub, is that noise tends to crunch quite nicely with distortion. If you've got like a low sine layer or a low sub layer, and then you have some noise on the top, the two of them crunch together really nicely. You know, it works really well. But we have a variety of color like noises in here, like basic noises. And I prefer the sound of the white one here. We can also control the stereo, give it a width, and we can also filter it. So think of this as like kind of like the filter in the DJM. So if I sweep to the left, it will low pass. If I sweep to the right, it will high pass. Cool. That's nice for now. Let's go into the effects. So we've got heavy distortion and we've got a compressor. Cool thing that we can do in Serum 2 is add another distortion. So in Serum 1, you were limited to like one distortion module, one compressor, etc. Here we can have as many as we want. I love the new overdrive distortion. Acts basically like a brick wall with various stacks. So sometimes this is really overkill. For something like this that's like so in your face, we can get away with it. So without, with, yeah, I don't need to explain that much more than that really. What it's doing is just slamming the sound. And let's finally move on. I realize I'm running through this nice and quick. So we've got, as well as our main effects chain, you'll notice here we've got these two buses, which can act in various different ways. We can dial it in from either individual oscillators or the filter. It's a way to bypass. So if I wanted to run the oscillator straight into this chain and also have it in the filter and various other things, you can like run things in different ways. So oscillator 1, I could run into the filter here and then also run it into the bus at the same time, and then sum those back together at the end. So you've got like two parallel effects chains. But I could also take the output of the filter, run it into this bus as like an aux send, and have that come out directly to the output. I could run this straight out into the bus here. So I could like have no output for the filter, run it into the bus, then run bus 1 into bus 2, and then bus 2 into this final one if you wanted to like stack effects chains as well. But what we're going to do is use this as kind of like a reverb send, basically. So I'll go into effects, hit bus 1, and you can see we've got some input there. So if I go in here, I can't remember if there's a way to like change the output on that. I don't think there is. I'm gonna like really fudge it, and then someone in the comments is gonna be like, oh, you can do this, and I'll be like, okay. So I'm just gonna throw a filter on. We're going to put like just an aggressive filter. So a high pass 24, sorry. If I turn that off, there we go. So we've basically muted the output from there now, so we're just going to be hearing the output in the bus here, which is funny as well because you can then hear it without all the distortion and stuff, and like how different it sounds. So I'm going to quickly kind of replicate the effects chain in that first one, just so we've got a similar kind of sound. So diode 2, bit less. The compressor, and then we'll do the distortion with the overdrive as well. Reason being is that when I add reverb, I want the reverb to feel like it's part of the whole sound, rather than, you know, it coming from that, which is so vastly different that it won't even sound like it's reverb on the same sound. That's better. So there's a bunch. I quite like the nitrous mode. Because it's got a cool ring to it. But there's a bunch of different modes in here as well. which will sound like vastly, vastly different. Like, that is sick, right? There's also bass in, which is, again, like another weird one. Let's try Hall, actually, having said that I'll try Nitrous. And I'm just going to high pass and low pass it. This is the advantage of having this on a bus, right? Is like I can process this to remove any of the lows. And then we can sum these back. And I can dial it in, so... Let's go into the bus here and dial it in relative to the sound. So take the size down a bit. Bring the highs down. And we can just adjust the mix really low. And I can also adjust the volume of it. To a point that it feels a little bit more natural. And obviously you could be dialing in the reverb as well for a little while just to get it sounding right. Cool, that will do for now. So we've got that running through. I think now is probably a good time to compare to the original. So I'm just going to close that down. Our original is here. So that's what we started with, and this is what we've ended up with. Kind of subtle, but so much bigger and fatter than the old one. It just adds so much more weight to what we were working with. And it was relatively kind of simple. We can also add things like LFOs to the volumes and stuff as well. But, you know, we could have done that in Serum 1 as well. So, yeah, awesome. Hope that was helpful. Any questions, let us know. Anything you want to see, let us know in the comments. And I will see you in the next one.